Hi, my name is John Nickel. I'm with WorshipTeamCoach.com, and you're at the Worship Guitar Workshop blog. And I'm going to talk to you today about capos. We're looking at 14 ways to escape the first 4 frets, and a capo is a pretty obvious one. Now, if you're unfamiliar with capos, go ahead and read the beginning of this blog. I'll tell you a little bit more about it. Basically, the capo, what it does is it emulates the open strings by clamping down. A lot of times we'd use a bar to do the same thing. Well, this does the work for us. Now, this is a standard capo which covers all 6 strings. And this is a customized capo, I'll also call it cut-capo. And what this one does is it only covers 3 strings, 3, 4, 5. And so it leaves the 6th open along with strings 1 and 2. And so you get this kind of open tuning sound, which actually it emulates the open tuning called dadgad, D-A-D-G-A-D. Only this time it's E-B-E, A-B-E, if you can keep that straight. The good thing is you don't have to learn a whole bunch of different fingerings with this capo. You simply play your normal fingerings that you normally would, your normal shapes, except you're 2 steps up. In here, one of the easiest keys to play in is the key of E. And when you play in the key of E with the cut capo, you're actually playing D chords, very familiar D chords. You get a D chord, which is your 1, a G chord, which is your 4 chord, and an A chord, which is your 5 chord. And if you're not familiar with all those Nashville numbers or theory numbers, don't worry about it. We'll talk a little bit about that, but you can gather it from other sources, either on my blog or in the internet. But let's look at the first one. What happens is we're playing this normal D, and we get this nice higher ringing sound that we don't normally get with our E chord because we're playing down here. And so we don't get this nice high ring there. But we put the cut capo on, and it allows us to play up here with the normal D chord, but then it also lets us get the low E. So it sounds like a really full chord. Alright? And then you can do your variations of the D, like the D sus. Off the second finger, D add 2, D sus 2, depending on what you call it, it actually becomes like an E power chord because there's no 3rd in the chord. These are all E's and B's, so it has kind of a meaty, beefy, gender-neutral sound. To actually create a 2 chord here, you would need to reach back behind the capo, which is probably more trouble than it's worth. It does sound pretty good though. Well, let's look at all the chords in the key of D though. So we start off, we've got D, of course, which is actually E. And in the blog, I think I actually call these by their real true names. So be looking at the blog that coincides with this. So we've got E or D, the 1 chord. Now the 2 chord in a major scale, in a major key, is actually a minor chord. And so what we would do normally is we'd make an F sharp minor. But the problem is we've got a capo right here. And so what we have to do is we have to reach around and play that. Well, that's kind of a different sound because it's got these open strings here. And so it creates kind of an 11 sound, F sharp minor 11. And most of the time I don't put the pinky in there, so it creates an extra little 7 sound. So it's a nice sound. It takes a little work to move. So there's a little work getting back and forth there. The next chord is a G sharp minor, or in this case, if we're looking at the capo, an F sharp minor. And again, we play it with a bar chord, most likely. Here's a couple shapes you may want to try. One is this shape, which kind of gives it that openy sound. It it turns out it's kind of a 6th chord with this open E in there. Not an exciting sounding chord. You can also try this shape, which is this part of the chord, but you're just playing with those 2 strings. Again, not a great sound. Here's the deal with the 3 chord, the minor 3 chord, is it's not used as often as the 2 chord, and later on we'll see the 6 chord. So what a lot of times you'll see instead is the root chord, the 1 chord, played with the 3rd note, the 3rd of the key in the bass. So it'd be a 1 chord over a 3. And so in this case, this shape would be a D over F sharp, or the true chord would be an E over G sharp. Now you notice I'm only playing with 3 fingers. A true chord like this, true E sharp, E over G sharp, would be played with a D with a G sharp in the bass. Now the problem is I've got short fingers, so I can't make the reach like a lot of guys can use their thumb. And so I'm finger impaired there, but a lot of you guys can probably do that. And so I play this. I'll leave that open string. Gives a kind of nice openy sound up there. And what I'll also do here is I'll let this first finger, I'll let it mute that A string, the 5th string. And what it does, it's technically in the chord, but it gets a little muddy down there. So I like to mute it a little bit. So far we've got the 1 chord, the 2 minor, the 1 over 3, and then where do we go from there? If we know our math, we go to 4. And that's the G chord, or in this case, the true key would be A. And up here you can just play a normal chord, and this acts as a capo, and so it would sound pretty much like your normal G chord, only 2 frets up. But here's some things that you can do with it. Now again, I like to mute this A string because you get that low B in there, and it's kind of gets a little muddy with that thick 3rd. Sometimes it's kind of stylistically cool, but a lot of times it just gets muddy. So I play with my first finger off, and you can experiment then with these open notes here. Since we're in the key of A, you've got an E here and a B, which is like an add 2 or a sus 2, just depending on how you look at it. So it's a nice sound. And you can do a little bit of moving around. You can also reach down with your first finger and do some things. One would be to get the major 7 note, so that'd be a G sharp to A. And you can also get the 2nd right there. So you can create all sorts of fun. You can also reach up, just like you can on the regular G chord. But these open notes make it nice. So we've got 1, 2 minor, 1 over 3, I should say, the 4 chord, and then we go to the 5 chord, which is in the key of D and A. Now this open E up here, since we're playing in the key of B, so we're playing a chord of B, it actually makes this kind of sus. It's actually an 11-y kind of sound. You've got the 3rd there, and then you've got this 4th. Kind of a neat sound. If you don't like it, you can always just kind of mute that out with your finger. Another shape I like is just your 2 shape, your add 2 or your sus 2 shape. Kind of creates a power chordy sound with that sus in there. Another sus, which basically doubles the E there, kind of thickens that sound. And then you've also got some other options of coming up here and playing, but we're not going to go into all those right now.